Welcome back to our latest deep dive. You know, sometimes you find stories in the weirdest places. I stumbled on this headline, buried in a local gardening expert's article, believe it or not.
Oh, really? What was it about?
It mentioned a robotically moving neighborhood in Shanghai. Sounded pretty out there.
Wow, yeah, that does sound like science fiction. And, well, you find that sometimes initial reports get a bit fuzzy, maybe mix up the dates or the tech terms.
Exactly. This article made it sound like it was still coming up, but the core story,
Right.
it's real and it just happened. And honestly, it's an incredible piece of engineering.
Right. It wasn't a future event. It was the return, wasn't it, of the Huayanli complex.
Precisely. We're talking this huge historic complex, 7,500 tons, over 4,000 square meters, built way back in the 1920s, 30s.
And it had been moved back in 2018, right, to let them do construction underneath.
Yeah, and it just got moved back to its original spot between late May and early June 2025. 7 years it was parked somewhere else.
Incredible. So our mission today, I guess, is to cut through some of that initial fuzziness and really dig into the real story. How did they move a building that old and that big?
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. First, big question. Why? Why on earth move an entire historic neighborhood block?
Well, the sources point to this really tricky situation in Shanghai's Zhengyuan district. You could almost call it an urban trilemma.
A trilemma. Okay, what were the conflicting points?
So you had three demands, and none of them were negotiable. First, absolute cultural preservation. These Shikumen buildings, the Huayanli complex, their iconic Shanghai architecture, tearing them down. Just not an option.
Okay, so saving the history was paramount. What was pushing against that?
Urban development. The city desperately needed, to build this massive underground hub right there. 53,000 square meters, connecting three major metro lines. You need that space, and it had to be under the complex.
Right, essential infrastructure.
Yeah.
But couldn't they just, dig carefully around it or tunnel under?
That's the third part of the trilemma. The geotechnical reality. Shanghai's ground is famously soft. It's like building on wet sand, almost.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Deep excavations are super risky. They can destabilize everything nearby. And a fragile 100-year-old building complex like Huayanli, it would be incredibly vulnerable. Conventional digging like cut and cover or even standard tunnel boring machines
Would likely damage or destroy the historic building sitting right on top.
Exactly. Too much risk. So you have to save the building, you have to build the underground hub, but you can't dig conventionally without wrecking the building.
That really boxes them in. It forces creativity, doesn't it?
It absolutely forced innovation. There was no off-the-shelf solution here.
So this leads to the relocate, excavate, return idea. Just pick it up, move it out of the way, dig, then put it back.
That's the strategy. Simple in concept, mind-boggling in execution. And the tech that made it possible wasn't just robots in a general sense.
Right. The article mentioned walking machines. What were they really?
They're called self-propelled modular transporters, or SPMTs. Think of them like incredibly powerful computer-controlled platforms on wheels.
There were hundreds of them. I saw a number like 432.
Yeah, get this. 432 individual modules all working together under the building's reinforced foundation, like a giant robotic centipede.
Wow. And they lift the building. How does that even work?
They have powerful hydraulic suspension. It does the initial lift, maybe 60 centimeters or so, but crucially, it constantly adjusts to keep the 7,500-ton load perfectly distributed. Uneven pressure would be disastrous.
And they can move in any direction, not just forward and back.
That's key. Omnidirectional steering. Sideways, diagonal, rotate on the spot. Essential for navigating tight city spaces and precise positioning.
Okay, here's what blows my mind. Controlling 432 separate units moving something so huge and fragile. How do you keep it synchronized? How do you prevent stress and cracks?
That's where the real magic is. It's not just brute force, it's incredibly high precision control. A centralized AI-driven system was the brain.
AI-driven.
Yeah. It took constant real-time data feeds from sensors on every single module, tracking pressure, tilt angle, vibration, everything, and it made micro adjustments instantly.
So it was constantly compensating, keeping everything perfectly level and stable.
Exactly. Ensuring the whole building moved as one single, rigid entity without any part getting stressed or twisted. It's less like moving a building and more like performing surgery on the cityscape.
So the whole process involved a lot more than just the move itself. They did digital modeling first.
Oh yeah, a full digital twin to simulate everything. Then structural reinforcement of the old building itself, then the synchronized lift, and then the actual move, which was incredibly slow.
How slow?
Like 10 meters a day. Painstakingly slow. And while it was moved aside, other specialized narrow space robots were actually helping with the underground excavation work. Then, the equally precise return journey.
When you step back, this feels like more than just one cool project. It
Yeah.
feels significant.
It absolutely is. It's a blueprint, really. It proves that you can have both historic preservation and major urban development, even in really difficult conditions.
Like Shanghai's soft ground, yeah.
It's a potential model for other historic cities facing similar pressures. Venice, Amsterdam, New Orleans, you name it.
And it points to this bigger trend in construction, right? Not just single robots doing one task, but integrated systems, fleets of robots managed by digital platforms and AI.
Definitely. It's a glimpse into the future of how we might build and rebuild our cities.
So, wrapping up, they solved this urban trilemma using some seriously advanced engineering and robotics, managing to preserve the past while literally building the future underneath it.
It's a remarkable achievement.
And it leaves us with a thought, doesn't it? For you, the listener. With cities everywhere facing this push-pull between growth and preserving history, how could this robotic relocation idea change things? What historic places near you could maybe, just maybe, be saved or integrated in a similar way? Something to think about.